In a world where Miles and his troublemaking trio reign, they set their sights on Jimmy Mulligan, an unlikely target. Bullied but unbroken, Jimmy's courage is fueled by loyal friends, Andy and Bobby, and unwavering parental love. This is a tale of resilience, friendship, and unexpected strength. One day, while Jimmy and his friends are on their way to school, they unexpectedly run into Miles and his gang. Miles and his buddies demand $100 from Jimmy. That's a lot of money, especially for Jimmy, who is not wealthy. So Jimmy tells them he doesn't have that much, but Miles doesn't care. He keeps pushing Jimmy to give him the money. Miles doesn't just target Jimmy. He also often bullies Bobby, mainly because Bobby thinks that Miles is being girly. Miles embarrasses Bobby in front of everyone at school, but Jimmy comforts Bobby and shows him he's not alone. Then Jimmy invites Andy and Bobby to have lunch together, promising to treat them. When they see Jimmy eating a lot, they're surprised, but they don't make fun of him. Andy and Bobby decide to help Jimmy by setting him up with a girl named Adrian from their school. They notice Adrian looking at Jimmy in the cafeteria. Right after that, Miles comes back, demanding the $100 again. Another student tells Miles to leave, and Miles gets angry and starts yelling at that student. But then, a bigger and stronger student stands up to Miles and teaches him a lesson. Miles runs off, and things calm down during lunch. After school, Miles corners Jimmy again and demands the money. But this time, Jimmy stands up for himself and says he doesn't owe Miles anything. Miles doesn't like this and starts hitting Jimmy on the roadside. Just as things get bad, an older man scares Miles away. His name is Mr. Actions. He helps Jimmy and takes him to his house to treat his injuries. Jimmy's life took an exciting turn when he found out Mr. Action used to be a tricky world heavyweight boxer. He was determined to stand up against Miles. Jimmy went to Mr. Action, hoping he'd teach him boxing. Despite Mr. Action wanting to help, he thought he was too old to coach the young lad. But don't worry, he promised to ask his friends for help. Mr. Action even talked to Jimmy's parents about what happened. They were thankful and agreed to let Jimmy learn boxing from Mr. Action. They all went to Manny's boxing training place together. Mr. Action explained everything to Manny, and Jimmy's determination impressed Manny. He then agreed to help Jimmy, but only if Jimmy promised to work hard and not give up. Jimmy started training with Manny, and Mr. Action watched closely to see how he was doing. During one of their talks, Jimmy told Mr. Action about Miles asking for $100 from him. Mr. Action had a clever idea. He said Jimmy should tell Melise he'd give him $200 but with a catch. Jimmy would ask for a month to prepare. Mr. Action believed Jimmy could become skilled enough to beat Miles within that time, so he wouldn't have to give the $200. So, Jimmy's boxing journey began. With Mr. Action and Manny's guidance, he trained hard, got better each day, and had a plan to deal with the bully. The next day, Jimmy followed Mr. Action's advice. When Miles returned to get the money, he thought for a bit, because it was a long time. But after a while, he agreed to give Jimmy an entire month to get twice the money. Jimmy felt better for a while because Miles stopped bothering him about the money. Later, during his boxing practice with Manny in the afternoon, Jimmy seemed tired and not into it. He said it wore him out, but Manny could tell it wasn't just his body. Manny was a pro and realized Jimmy's tiredness was more in his head than his muscles. So, Manny told Mr. Action that Jimmy wasn't in the right mindset and wasn't taking the training seriously. On their way home, Mr. Action asked Jimmy why he seemed so down that day. Jimmy admitted he felt tired and frustrated. He thought all his hard work wasn't making a difference. He felt weak and like he couldn't stand up to Miles's bullying. When Mr. Action heard this, he wanted to cheer Jimmy up. He said it does not waste his effort, even if things don't always work out. He promised Jimmy that he would learn essential things from trying, no matter what happens. When Jimmy got home, his dad noticed he wasn't as excited about his training anymore. His dad didn't push him, leaving the choice to Jimmy, but he said he hoped Jimmy could teach his kids to defend themselves one day, so they wouldn't have to go through what he did. Thinking about his dad's words, Jimmy's determination to train returned strong. He took his training seriously and practiced hard. The next day, Jimmy and his friends faced the mean group led by Miles again. This time, they were even more intimidating and hurt Jimmy's friend Bobby in front of everyone. Bobby was sad and alone, so Jimmy went to comfort him. Jimmy felt like they were weak against Miles and his gang. but he disagreed. He told Bobby he planned to stop Miles and end the bullying. When Jimmy got home, he rushed on his bike to Manny's boxing gym. Even though he usually got rides from Mr. Action, he was excited to join the boxing training again. Manny was happy to see Jimmy's enthusiasm, but accidentally, Jimmy bumped into Manny and fell. Instead of getting mad, Manny was glad to see Jimmy's seriousness about boxing. Day by day, Jimmy trained hard in boxing with solid determination. Manny added challenging exercises and even mixed martial arts training. Mr. Action helped Jimmy's mindset with advice and inspiration. At school, Jimmy talked to his friend Andy about his boxing and mission to beat Miles. Another student named Adrian joined the conversation, and they agreed to date. They felt a strong connection at the party and were in a relationship. During the date, a guy named Eddie, who was with Miles, bothered Jimmy and Adrian. But now, Jimmy was confident and stood up to Eddie, making him leave. Time passed, and the day came for Jimmy to face Miles. He woke up feeling confident. At school, Miles threatened Jimmy, but Jimmy was determined not to be bullied anymore. In the bathroom, Jimmy met Vinny, who knew about the fight with Miles. Vinny encouraged Jimmy and wished him luck. Unknowingly, Eddie overheard and told Miles. Miles got a tough guy named Glassjaw Billy to challenge Jimmy. The entire school got interested in the fight. Vinny's friends kidnapped Glassjaw, so Miles had to fight Jimmy alone. At first, Jimmy struggled, but he didn't give up. He fought back, dodged Miles' hits, and landed a powerful punch. Jimmy transformed from a bullied kid to someone who could protect himself. Miles' friends wanted to help, but Andy and Bobby joined Jimmy to stand up against them. Together, they defeated Miles and his gang. Jimmy told Miles to stop bullying, but Miles didn't care. Mr. Action was proud of Jimmy's strength and compassion. The fight was recorded and spread on social media. People praised Jimmy for standing up to his bullies. Jimmy's parents were proud too, knowing their son was strong and not a victim anymore. The story ended with Jimmy, Andy, Bobby, and Adrian being confident and popular at school. The lesson was, never underestimate someone who's underestimated. Even someone funny can surprise everyone and stand up against bullies.